Greetings, I'm Zachary Hepner. I'm pleased to share this Dvar Torah with you for Parashat Naso. The libretto for Rossini's The Barber of Seville was written by Cesare Sterbini, adapted from Pierre Beaumarchais' original play. One of the opera's most striking moments comes in a solo by Don Basilio, the notary, who explains to Dr. Bartolo the insidious power of slander. Quote, "Calumny is a little breeze, a gentle zephyr, which insensibly, subtly, lightly and sweetly commences to whisper. And finally, with a crack and crash, it spreads afield, its force redoubled, and produces an explosion, like the outburst of a cannon, an earthquake, a whirlwind, and the poor slandered wretch, vilified, trampled down, by good fortune, falls to death." End quote. Sterbini's insight is chillingly accurate. Slander begins quietly, like a whisper or a breeze, but it builds slowly, subtly, until it becomes a storm, a cannon blast, a destructive force that can and does ruin lives. This theme of the power of sound, particularly quiet sound, also appears in one of the most powerful narratives in Tanakh. In 1 Kings 19, the prophet Eliyahu Hanavi travels for 40 days to Mount Horeb, seeking a revelation of God's presence. Vayomer tzeve amata b'har lifnei Hashem, v'ruach gdola v'chazak mefarek harim, v'lo b'ruach Hashem, v'achar haruach ra'ash, v'lo b'ra'ash Hashem, v'achar harash eish, v'lo va'eish Hashem, v'achar ha'eish kol demama daka. There was a mighty wind, shattering mountains, but God was not in the wind. After the wind, an earthquake, but God was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake, fire, but God was not in the fire. And after the fire, a still, small voice. God is not found in noise or spectacle, but in a whisper, kol d'mama daka, a subtle sound, like the zephyr in Rossini's aria. It is the quiet that speaks loudest. This idea is reflected again in Masechet Brachot 58a, in a story about the blind sage Rav Sheshet. As the crowds gathered to greet the king, Rav Sheshet, who was blind, went too. A skeptic mocked him. "Intact jugs go to the river? What are you doing here, broken one?" Rav Sheshet replied, "Come and see, I know more than you." The first troop passed, noise increased. The skeptic said, "Now the king is coming." Rav Sheshet said, "Not yet." The second troop passed. "Now?" "Not yet." Then the third passed, and silence fell. Rav Sheshet said, "Now the king is coming." Once again, the deepest truth is not heralded by noise, but by stillness. Like Eliyahu, Rav Sheshet finds meaning in silence. Parenthetically, this is in direct contrast to The Sound of Silence by Simon and Garfunkel, which is a song about the inability of people to communicate effectively, emotionally, or intellectually. Not so, says Rav Sheshet and Eliyahu Hanavi. The sound of silence is in fact amok, amok. It is very deep indeed. This motif recurs at the end of Parashat Naso, after the offerings of the Nesiim of the tribal princes. Uvavo Moshe Elohim u'ed ledaber ito, vayishma et hakol midaber elav. When Moses entered the tent of meeting to speak with God, he heard the voice speaking to him from above the cover of the ark. Rashi comments on the unusual reflexive word, the word midaber in the reflexive, like mit daber. God was speaking to himself, and Moses tuned in. I add that the voice of God was not addressing Moses directly at first, but it was an AM/FM station. On the radio dial, a whisper. Moses tuned in to hear, for himself to hear. This resonates with the verse from Tehillim 34, which is recited 3 times daily. Notzor l'shoncha mera usfatecha midaber mirma. Guard your tongue from evil and your lips from speaking deceit. As we say in the Amidah, following Mar Breid Ravina's version of that verse in Brachot 17a, Elokai, Notzor l'shoni mera usfatai midaber mirma. My God, guard my tongue from evil and my lips from midaber, deceit. from speaking deceit. The key word here, midaber, again appears in its rare reflexive form. Drawing on Rashi, we can read it as, protect me not from speaking evil, but from being in the presence of evil speech, tuning in to the deceptive channel, just as Moses tuned in to the divine radio waves. This brings me to a personal note. This verse is also part of a well-known song, Mi Ha'ish HaChafetz Chaim, associated with the Chafetz Chaim and his legacy against Lashon Hara. In 1997, while visiting the home of the Zaks family, Rabbi Mendel Zaks was the Chafetz Chaim's son-in-law, and he was also a leader at the Radin Yeshiva. My beloved teacher, Rabbi Yossel Weisberg, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, and I had entered to check up on a newborn after his bris milah, and Yossel entered into the descendants of Rav Mendel Zaks' family, Mi Ha'ish HaChafetz Chaim. A toddler, the newborn's older brother, heard it, and when he heard this song being sung, his face lit up like the full moon. He couldn't contain his joy. The song, the verse, the memory, it all converged in that moment. And what a memory for me. But back to the Dvar Torah. The slander, the danger of slander is not only what we say, but in what we allow ourselves to hear. That whisper, that breeze is powerful. It can lead us closer to the divine, or it can become a destructive whirlwind, like the slander Don Basilio describes. So each day we pray, let us be like Moshe, attuned to the quiet holiness of God's voice, and let us guard ourselves, not only from speaking slander, but even from overhearing or participating in it. Usvatai midaber mirma, be like Moshe, who tuned into the midaber, not like Don Bartolo, who rode the whirlwind of midaber, but for slander. Wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom.